TV8, your local election headquarters. This is Up for Grabs, Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat.
Welcome to Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. The origins of this race begin in 2000. That was the year that then Congresswoman Debbie Stabenow defeated incumbent Republican Spencer Abraham for a U.S. Senate seat. Defeating an incumbent senator is rare, and Stabenow did it with a little more than 67,000 votes out of more than 4 million cast. Fast forward to now, Senator Stabenow announced last year that she would retire at the end of her term, thus creating a rare open seat. Any number of people ran or considered running, but in the end, the primary voters decided on the two major party candidates, Democrat Elissa Slotkin and Republican Mike Rogers, who will square off in the November election. During this program, we will examine some major issues that the candidates will have to address, depending on which one prevails, once they take office. We've enlisted the help of our colleagues to take a look at some of those very issues, including the economy and inflation, and how those two issues impact people on a daily basis. Reproductive rights and abortion. Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe, states have reacted in very different ways, raising the question of the need of a national solution. Immigration. The southern border has been the focus of politicians on both sides of the aisle, with plenty of finger-pointing, but what is the solution? And America's involvement in foreign conflicts on two fronts, specifically in Ukraine and Russia, that escalated in 2022 and has remained a hot war zone since, and in Israel, where in October of last year, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hostages, some that have since been killed, others remain captives. The attack resulted in an ongoing retaliation in Gaza and elsewhere that has killed tens of thousands. So what role does the U.S. play in both conflicts? We'll discuss that. Those are some of the issues we'll look at in this program. We begin with the economy and inflation. In our August polling data from the Hill and Emerson College in Michigan, 44% of people asked identified the economy as their #1 concern. To examine that issue further, here is Brittany Flowers.
Right now, I just put 50 in. I probably got on to like 3/4 of a tank.
As someone who drives for a living, Rez Brown has to fill up no matter the cost.
I use about 60 a day. Now I'm doing 50 a day, which is the cheapest it's been in about 3-4 months for me, and I hate it.
Definitely do not travel around like I used to.
As a stay-at-home mom, Trisha Wabanimki knows more driving equals more money, putting a dent in her family's single-income budget.
You can't go out and do as many things.
Though gas prices in Michigan are about 50 cents lower than this time last year, according to AAA, the price at the pump is still front of mind for many consumers. That's because they're feeling the pain of higher prices on other things.
Food costs is my main thing.
I noticed just last week, I ran into 2 people where their cards were declining and they were trying to buy groceries.
Yesterday I went and eggs were $3.77 a dozen. It just went up too.
For seniors on a fixed income, Chris Brown Snyder says it's almost impossible to keep up.
I haven't even talked about car insurance, health insurance. What about utilities? So you're talking heat and, electricity and the internet and everything. It's just, oh my gosh, it's beyond people's means now.
Voters hopeful they'll catch a break sooner than later.
We can't deal with this much longer.
When we sat down with both of the candidates earlier in the election cycle, we asked them about inflation and ways to handle it and how to get the economy in general back on track, addressing high cost. Keep in mind, some of the votes and dates that are mentioned were from a few weeks ago. We asked Democratic Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin what can be done to battle inflation.
Well, I think we'd continue attacking the things that are disproportionately high. I mean, the prices are too high on lots of things, groceries, gas, but also, the big one that we've been attacking is prescription drug pricing. Everyone knows that we're paying too much for our prescription drugs. Everyone knows that there's some sort of white-gloved racket when it comes to the pharmaceutical industry. And so we've worked really hard to bring down the price of insulin, for instance, to $35 for Medicare patients, allowing Medicare to negotiate for drug prices like Costco. So to me, going after those big chunks in our budget, particularly healthcare, prescription drugs, housing has become huge for people. Childcare often left off the table, and then post-secondary education. The big blocks that people care about when they're trying to like stay in or achieve that middle-class life, those are the ones that, to me, I attack first, and we've been attacking certainly on prescription drug pricing.
Republican Mike Rogers, a former member of Congress, had this to say.
I think you have to do two things on the economy, and some of it's going to take time, some of it you can begin immediately. One, you have to slow and stop so much wasteful government spending. That money that Washington, D.C. is pouring into the economy is driving up your food prices, it's driving up your gas prices, it's driving up interest rates so your kids can't buy a home. All of that's happening because of the huge, massive pour of cash from Washington, D.C. That's got to end. Think of this, just on the immigration piece, $450 billion to give food, room and board, credit card, cell phones to illegals, right? You can get rid of that money. That would pay for every Michigan state trooper and every teacher in Michigan for 15 years. That part's got to end. So that's the kind of spending I'm talking about. In addition, we have to unleash our energy economy here. Listen, we're going to need gasoline for the next 100 years by every good estimate I've seen. So we should be in all of the above strategy, but unleash our ability to use our energy and our resources to pay for the things that we need here. Otherwise, we send billions and billions and billions of dollars overseas, and we send that to countries that don't like us very much. So that's a kind of a quick boom to the economy. You bring down prices, and then you go down the other actions, regulation that's causing businesses problems. By the way, regulation that's causing agriculture problems right here in Michigan. We've got to get that fixed. Those are the kinds of things we can do pretty quickly to start getting a handle on that rising inflation rate and start bringing it down so you don't have to decide, am I going to go to work today or buy some groceries today? And people are making that decision.
We'll have more on the issues when we come back. But first, when it comes to this election, Michigan matters. And it's not just because that the winner of this year's Senate race will be a deciding factor in which party controls the United States Senate. Michigan will play a major role in the run for the White House. And we'll explain when we come back on Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. Welcome back to Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. In the nearly 30 years that I've covered politics in Michigan, we've had exactly 4 United States senators. In January, it will be 5. And we'll have more on the history of this Senate seat coming up. But right now, let's see why Michigan matters in this race. Yes, the candidate who wins the Senate race will be one of a handful that will decide the balance of power in the upper chamber. It's virtually tied. In fact, there are 7 races that Real Clear Politics list as toss-ups: Florida, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Montana, Arizona, and Michigan. In a chamber so narrowly divided, any of these races can have an impact. But it's not just about the Senate race. It's also about the White House. The website 270 to Win suggests there are 7 states that remain a toss-up in that race, too. And they're not all the same as those Senate races. For president, it's Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, and Michigan. They're all deemed too close to call. And all that equals about 93 electoral votes still available. If the current polling is accurate, Democrats would need to win 44 of those to get to the magic number of 270. Republicans would need 51. That leaves 20 or so combinations of those states for either party to win. In most of those combos, Michigan, with 15 electoral votes, can certainly play an important role. That explains the presence of the top of the ticket and surrogates streaming into the state since each party's respective convention. For Democrats, the race for president could go through the industrial states by winning Wisconsin, winning Michigan, and Pennsylvania. That takes them exactly to 270. If you turn those back neutral and take a look for Republicans, it's a little longer path. If you win Michigan, you still have to win Georgia and North Carolina, and you're still 4 electoral votes short, so you would have to have yet another state to get to 270. But as I say, there are almost 20 of those combinations for for both candidates, and that's why we're likely to see those visits by candidates and those who represent them continue and increase as we get closer to Election Day. Up next, one of the issues that has challenged politicians and voters for decades, women's reproductive health and abortion. It is not, as a technical matter, on the ballot in Michigan, but some people believe it's an unsettled issue. We'll explain when we continue with Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. Welcome back to Up for Grabs as we talk about the United States Senate race here in Michigan. And knowing that that person elected could be starting a decades-long run in the upper chamber, what they think about issues really matters. Perhaps there is no issue that has been debated as long and with as much passion in recent history as abortion rights and women's reproductive health. In Michigan in 2022, by a margin of 56 to 43, voters voted in favor of Prop 3 that makes abortion legal in the state with few exceptions. Still, concerns remain for some given how some other states have applied different laws and restrictions and created a patchwork of rules that vary from state to state. Tim Scooby from our sister station in Lansing has more.
Michigan Democrats discovered that having Proposal 3 on the statewide ballot in 2022 was a game changer. It was all about abortion. In fact, after the election, Governor Gretchen Whitmer conceded that abortion issue alone added about 5 points to her 10-point victory over Tudor Dixon, who was against abortions. But abortion is not on the statewide ballot this time, but the issue is still having an impact in the Alyssa Slotkin versus Mike Rogers competitive U.S. Senate race. Democrat Ms. Slotkin gets 70% of the pro-choice vote. Republican Mike Rogers receives 73% of the pro-life vote. Back in March of 2023, before he was an announced candidate, Mr. Rogers told reporters that he did not vote on Prop 3 because he resided in Florida. But had he been in Michigan, he says he probably would have opposed it. Would you have supported Proposal 3?
I don't believe in that. I'm not sure how it was written, honestly.
It was written basically, it says the woman has a right to choose, and it legalized abortion.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have done it because it covers right up to the day of birth. And I'm not there. I don't think most Americans are there. I think that's kind of an extreme position, candidly.
Mr. Rogers does support the rape, incest, and life of the mother exemptions for abortions and does not favor a national abortion ban, saying that this is a state issue. Meanwhile, while in Congress, Ms. Slotkin told her colleagues on the congressional floor that they, Republicans, were against the rape and incest exception. She described it this way.
You want to ban all abortions. That is your goal. Many of you have been open about that. And if you flip the House, we know that you will put forward a full ban on all abortion for all states. You've been clear about it.
Abortion is not the #1 issue on the mind of Michigan voters. The economy is. And Republicans believe that plays in their favor, while the Democrats think abortion plays in theirs.
We asked both former Congressman Rogers and Congresswoman Slotkin what their thoughts are on the subject and if there should be a federal action to create a uniform policy from state to state. First, Republican Mike Rogers.
I think it is up to the states. And we had a ballot of the people in 2022, and they decided abortion access should be legal here in Michigan and made it a part of the Michigan Constitution. I don't think, as the United States Senator from Michigan, I should go back and do anything that contradicts what the people of Michigan decided to do on abortion here in the state of Michigan. And that includes IVF. Listen, this is a hard and difficult decision that a woman would have to make. She needs to make that with her partner, her family, her faith, and her medical provider who is here in the state. That's why I think states are best equipped to handle these decisions. And I think that we should leave it in the states. We shouldn't federalize it.
We also asked Democrat Alyssa Slotkin.
Well, obviously, I was deeply disturbed by the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and one of the things I've been doing here in town was talking about how the overturning of Roe v. Wade was just the start of the attacks that have come on choice. And I voted on choice issues last week, right? Last week I voted against a bill because it wanted to ban women in uniform, military women, from traveling from the state of Texas to another state if they needed an abortion, since Texas has none. It hasn't stopped. I think I voted 17 times on anti-choice pieces of legislation this year. And so I don't think it's a settled thing to just say, oh, leave it up to the states when there's federal legislation coming in front of me every other week. There's tons of issues going through the courts. We could hear as recently as this week whether a woman is guaranteed the right to emergency room care in every state in the country if she's having a dangerous miscarriage, or if states are allowed to preference the fetus, okay, like Idaho. So these are very real threats. They haven't stopped. So I do feel we need federal legislation. We need one thing, and we see it here in the Grand Rapids area. Who do you think's coming into the clinics in West Michigan? It's all the Indiana women, since they're banned. It used to be the Ohio women, right? But that Republican-dominated state also voted the way Michigan did to codify Roe. So I don't think the attacks have stopped, and I don't think it's just a Democratic issue. We've proved that with how many Michiganders voted for this who would never call themselves Democrats, but believe that a woman has a right to decide her own destiny.
So you do think something at the federal level would be appropriate?
I do. I absolutely do.
We're just getting started looking at this pivotal race, and coming up, we'll hear from voters and both candidates about immigration. But first, a look back at the history of this important Senate seat is up next. Up for grabs, the race for the United States Senate. As I pointed out earlier in our show, an open seat for the United States Senate is rare. So is beating an incumbent, but the last time this seat changed hands, it was Democrat Debbie Stabenow who did just that by beating Republican Spencer Abraham. With a deeper dive into the history of this seat, here from WLNS is Megan Vaselli.
Michigan's open U.S. Senate seat has a long and rich history. Among the people to hold it, Louis Cass, a former governor, ambassador to France, and Secretary of State. He used to have this building in Lansing named after him. Woodbridge Ferris, a former governor as well as a senator, who went on to found the school that became Ferris State University. And Arthur Vandenberg, a Senate legend whose statue stands in his hometown of Grand Rapids. Whoever wins the race to become Michigan's next U.S. Senator will be just the 5th person to hold that seat in the last 65 years. Phil Hart held the seat from 1959 until his death in 1976. Don Riegel served out that term and was elected until he retired, felled by a scandal 19 years later. Republican Spencer Abraham beat out Bob Carr for the seat in 1994, the only Republican to hold the seat in recent years. But he only lasted one term. He was ousted in a come-from-behind victory by Debbie Stabenow in the 2000 election, a seat she's held for the last 24 years.
When we come back, what do the candidates think about the nation's southern border? And more important, what do they think should be done to fix our broken immigration system? Two different views next on Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. Welcome back to Up for Grabs. The rapid influx of migrants across the United States southern border has been a political hot topic for years. In the last 3.5 years, with Joe Biden as president, Republicans have decried the fact that so many people were coming across the border illegally, and they wanted more action. Democrats say a bipartisan bill that would have fixed the problem, in their opinion, was torpedoed by Donald Trump. No matter what either side says, the problem still exists. With a look at the issue, here's Wood TV's George Smith.
So these are Evercress. These were planted about 2015.
The Croft family has been growing apples for 4 generations.
Every day, 7 days a week. It's very hard to manage. Mother Nature's our boss.
At their orchard in Greenville, they rely on migrant workers in the H-2A program, which brings foreign workers to the U.S. for temporary work.
Very important. We wouldn't be here today if we did not have the H-2A program. We have guys that have been with us since we started with the program in 2016.
Those workers are critical to Michigan's economy, but there's a very different view for those who come here illegally.
It's eroding the whole concept of citizenship if you just say we have an open border.
Republicans have made the influx of migrants at the southern border a central issue in the presidential campaign.
If it's illegal immigration, I think it's something that Americans want to a secure border and prevent people coming here illegally.
Everyone seems to agree that migrant workers help our rural economy thrive.
We've always had a system in place that allows people to come from other countries, do farm labor, and then go back to their countries, and that has worked so well.
What would happen if you weren't able to use them?
We'd be out of business. You know, the domestic worker is nowhere to be found these days.
For Democratic candidate for Senate Elissa Slotkin to get at the problem of the southern border, it's a matter of finding a fix for a broken system when it comes to immigration. As for blame, she thinks everybody in Washington shares at least part of the blame, and she says it needs to get fixed.
I don't think there's massive disagreement, or there shouldn't be, that our immigration system is broken. It's really not working for anyone. Employers, immigrants, our border forces.
And by the way, not to interrupt, but it's been broken for a long time.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd say. No one's proud of what's going on the southern border. They shouldn't be. And everybody's got some blame in this. Democrats, Republicans, White House, Congress, and anyone who tries to say it's just their fault isn't a serious person, right? So for me, I've been a CIA officer and a Pentagon official. Every country in the world gets to know who's coming within its borders. And you don't get to come over in places that are not legal, ports of entry. That's number one. Number two, we got to make it faster for someone to be applying from their home country, get vetted properly, and then get to the United States faster than walking 1,000 miles with their children over the border. That doesn't make sense for anybody. And you know, out here we've got our farmers who are desperate for labor. We've got a lot of businesses desperate for labor. But it needs a comprehensive approach. This kind of salami slice, one executive order here, they always get challenged in the courts, right? So they don't really last that long. And it's just not the way a nation of immigrants should do immigration policy. Rational people should get in a room for 45 minutes without Twitter and be able to solve this. And that's what was happening. Senator Langford from Oklahoma was, I give him a lot of credit, was sitting with Chris Murphy, a Democrat, a Republican and a Democrat, hammering out details. We were excited that actually we were doing what I think the American people want us to do. But I have to say, President Trump, former President Trump, came in and he said, I don't want a deal on immigration. I want to be able to use that. And to me, I have a real problem with that. And so everyone's to blame, but you gotta let Democrats and Republicans work and compromise for the good of the nation. And I think that's where I have a problem with President Trump intervening.
For Republican Senate candidate Mike Rogers, the problem is about more than people crossing the border.
The Biden administration, the first day, took out Remain in Mexico, took out deportations. And so those two big things just turned the light on and said, everybody run for the border now. And that's exactly what happened. Those numbers just were kind of bumping along the bottom and just skyrocketed because you took away the two biggest tools that Customs and Border Protection had to keep, to go through a legal process. This isn't about legal immigration, this is about illegal immigration. And you can see the crime happening around the country, including right here in Grand Rapids, where an illegal was killed, Ruby Garcia. That's happening all over the country. You can't turn on the TV without seeing it. So Remain in Mexico, first day, has to happen. That second piece is you have to start deporting people who aren't here illegally, don't qualify for the program of which they say they were coming in under. If you don't get that law and order piece back to immigration, you're going to continue to have these huge problems with criminal elements coming across, nation states sending intelligence officers across, and terrorists sending operatives across is all going to continue to happen. And the problem with that bill that the Democrats are touting as action, it permanently made a number of illegal crossings okay. Well, no illegal crossings should be okay. That should be our standard. And what that did is it empowered the drug cartels on the southern border to charge more money for the people they can get across, number one. And it was still a wide open border for fentanyl, methamphetamine. And these are the drugs that are killing 100,000 Americans a year.
When we come back, a look at how the two candidates, both with experience in defense of this country, view our nation's involvement in foreign conflicts and how they think we should proceed as two specific engagements drag on. Plus, will this election be impacted by a new generation of voters? That's coming up on Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. Welcome back to Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. As we move closer to Election Day and more people consider voting, what is happening to young people who are eligible to vote, some for the first time? Youth voter turnout is always a question for campaigns to consider, and Wood TV's Adriana Doria talked with some of those potential voters.
With the United States Senate seat up for grabs and a presidential race heating up in the battleground state, one of the key players coming out to the ballot box in November will be the new generation of young voters. We traveled across West Michigan to see what's on their minds and what's bringing them out to the polls.
The economy,
LGBTQ issues, women's rights issues,
the climate crisis. A variety of issues on the top of mind for young voters.
If you want to get an education in this country, you shouldn't have to be working 4 jobs.
I'm very pro-choice.
The biggest issue is bridging the political divide.
Across college campuses, students walk their new campuses and begin their school year.
There's a lot on the line. There's a lot to lose.
Many are feeling the weight of the election season.
We're just getting to a point where the average American is just hating their neighbor.
America is so divided, and there's never there's no middle ground. So I think whether a Republican or a Democrat candidate wins, the other party is gonna react in a not appropriate way.
As many prepare to vote for the first time, it's a mixed bag on whether they feel their generation is reflected in the political climate.
I think one of the questions we kind of have to be asking is not what can young voters do for politicians, but what can politicians do for young voters?
Talk about issues that connect to young people, not get people who young people like to talk about issues that they don't care about.
All but one person we spoke to plans to vote this November, but will that be enough? An Emerson College poll conducted late last month in Michigan found that young voters tend to lean left. It found that voters under the age of 30 favored Kamala Harris to Donald Trump by 62 to 32%.
I think it would be so cool as a young black girl to see a young black woman in office. It would be amazing. It would be a big first for this country, and I think that's the direction that we need to be moving in.
On the other side of the aisle, young Republican voters say they feel the hefty price tag of today's economy.
And a lot of students who are working multiple jobs just to get by so they don't have to take out loans. And the ones that do have to take out loans, their interest rates are going up and out of control.
I'm a worker and I get taxed, so my money is going to go to whatever policies are in office, so I want my voice to be heard to direct those policies.
But no matter if they're voting for Democrats or Republicans, all these young voters agreed on one thing.
You have your voice and you need to use it.
Far left, far right, I don't care. Get out and vote.
Go vote.
When you vote this year, it will be the first time some new rules will be in place for a major election. Early no-reason absentee voting has been around for a while, but early in-person voting will make its debut in a general election for president. To talk about those changes and to go over some of the protocol for this year's election, we talked with Kent County Clerk Lisa Posthumus-Lyons. So there are 3 things I want to ask you about, because there are changes that we've already experienced, but never in a general election that will involve the race for president or the U.S. Senate race that we're talking about. So those 3 changes include being able to register when?
You can register up to and including Election Day.
And that is something that is relatively new, so if you aren't registered, that's not an excuse, right?
No excuse to not be registered. The voters passed a proposal that would allow for registering to vote up to and including Election Day. It's very different. If you're going in to register within 2 weeks before the election, you have to make sure you're going to register at your local clerk's office, whether it's the city or the township clerk. Otherwise, you can register by mail, in person at the clerk's office, or even online.
There's also the ability to vote almost any time. As soon as the ballots come out, 40 days before the election, something like that. It's no reason absentee voting. We've been doing that for a while, but just remind people how that works.
So Michigan voters, again, passed a proposal back in 2018 to allow for no reason absentee voting. And so we went through one presidential cycle with that in the middle of the pandemic. This is our first presidential cycle where we're not dealing with the pandemic, but those options to be able to cast an absentee ballot remain. And so you can request an absentee ballot via an application. You can mail that in. You can go in person and request it, or you can be put on the permanent absentee ballot list. You can even request that online.
And let's talk about early in-person voting. This will be a first for a presidential election, and it's going to be different from county to county, and so you'll have to check because this will be seen in lots of different counties, but generally, how does it work?
Again, voters passed this measure to allow for at least 9 days of early voting before our state and federal elections. And so what you're going to see is early in-person voting that could be run by your county. Here in Kent County, we are having our early voting sites run individually by our local jurisdictions for their own voters. You will go in and you'll have basically the same experience as if you were going in on Election Day and casting your ballot at the polls.
Keep in mind, if you plan to vote early in person, you'll need to check with your local clerk to see where that voting place will be. As you just heard, it will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and it will not necessarily be at your normal precinct voting location. Coming up, we'll tell you about some other races you may want to put on your radar depending on where you live. But first, what did the two major party candidates think about the United States' involvement in two international conflicts that have been ongoing and taken thousands of lives? They'll both weigh in when we return. Up for grabs, the race for the United States Senate. Welcome back to Up for Grabs, the race for the United States Senate. There are few things more serious for elected officials to consider than our country's involvement in hostilities around the globe. Sending equipment and technology is one thing. Sending direct financial support is yet another. Sending American women and men into battle is the most serious decision that can be made. Here's Duncan McLean with how Americans feel about our involvement in recent wars.
The United States is contributing financial or arms support to 6 different conflicts as the 2024 election approaches. Voters we spoke to about the key issues heading into the fall were split on those conflicts' effects on their votes.
It's going to be on my mind. It's a concern, but I don't see it as being a partisan thing at all. The foreign stuff I'd probably stay out of.
A recent issues poll indicated that 88% of voters labeled foreign policy as an important issue to their vote, though that came in behind 8 other issues. When asked what their most important issue was, only 1% of voters said foreign policy. While America's foreign conflicts might not be issue number 1 for the public square in the upcoming Senate election, people do have opinions on how they hope our new senator and their peers in Congress handle these things in the future, including the costs of these wars and when to get involved.
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with that. I don't agree with what's going on, all the people, innocent people that are getting killed, and they're just destroying their countries.
Our money and our troops are being placed in the wrong areas. These wars can be fought themselves.
We're backing our allies. NATO is key.
So with at least 2 hot zones in the world right now that the United States is involved in, the Ukraine-Russia war and the Israel-Hamas conflict, what is the end game and what is the level of that involvement? How much engagement should we have, and can we afford to disengage? We asked former Second Lieutenant in the U.S. Army and former Congressman Mike Rogers about what the proper role should be for the United States in foreign conflicts.
This, to me, is the great opportunity, I think, to ask and clarify that decisions that are made by the White House have consequences internationally. So the Middle East is a great example to me, completely could be avoided. Absolutely should have been avoided. So the first actions on behalf of the Biden administration was to tell Saudi Arabia, you can't go after the Houthi rebels, who were on their southern border, shooting at them, by the way, and trying to secede from Yemen. They said, can't do that anymore. We're taking your ability away. We're not going to give you the tools you need to win that fight. The next step is they took the Houthi rebels off of the terrorist list. And of course, it's the Houthi rebels that are now shooting at U.S. Navy personnel in the Med, and they're also shooting at commercial ships, driving up costs for our goods and services here at home. Second, the third part of that, all within a very short period of time, they allowed Iran to put oil into the market, gave them access to billions and billions of dollars. And where did that money go? It went to Hezbollah, it went to Hamas, it went to the militias, the Shia militias across the Middle East. We watched over 100 attacks on U.S. personnel and interests across the Middle East leading up to October 7th. And then, of course, they're well-funded, they're well taken care of. I'm talking about, the Hamas terrorists. October 7th happens. Those decisions have consequences, and those consequences we're living today. That's why I think it's so important. People do need to ask, you know, what kind of an environment should we be? I always believe the United States should be engaged in the world to our advantage and not entangled in the world like we are here. And remember when the President of the United States had to go to Saudi Arabia and say, "Woo, would you please pump more oil for our markets here?" We should never be in that condition. Back to that first discussion we had about why energy independence for the United States is so important. And so you start making those decisions, we're going to have these kinds of consequences. And by the way, when did that start? When the hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan ended up killing 13 service members. We hadn't had, for the previous 2 years, had not had one service member killed in Afghanistan. And so that kicked it off. I think Putin said, hey, these folks aren't serious. That kicked off the Ukrainian invasion. These other decisions we just talked about allowed bad actors in the Middle East say, I don't think they're serious. We're going to go in on attack Israel on October 7th. The world does, you know, there's a lot of people in the world want to do harm to the United States. We have to know that. And every single day we get up, somebody wants to do some harm. So you have to make decisions that put us in the best possible position to avoid conflict, to avoid any type of military escalation. But those decisions will have consequences. That's why we need a change in direction in Washington, D.C. for your pocketbook, for your security, and for security in your communities. And that brought on by those bad decisions on the southern border by just throwing open the gates and say, Ali, Ali, income free.
Former CIA analyst and acting Assistant Secretary of Defense, Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin, talks about the appropriate posture of the United States in these international fights.
Let's talk about Putin, right? I mean, the epitome of a bully and an autocrat, and invaded a democracy and tried to take over the whole thing. You know, there was a lot of debate in Congress. There's still debate about whether we should support the Ukrainians in pushing back the Russians. And anyone who's dealt with a bully knows if you don't push back on them, they're just going to find more places to push, right? They're just going to try every door they can get through, including NATO countries, people who are allies. So I do believe in supporting the Ukrainians in their fight against the Russians. I've voted that way multiple times. And I think it's a bigger story about, do we believe that the United States should be the leader of the next century of the free world? Or are we okay with Russian leadership or Chinese leadership? And I'll be the first one to say, as someone who served in government, that we're not perfect. The United States is not perfect. Our foreign policy is far from perfect. But man, would I always prefer American leadership over Russian leadership or Chinese leadership. So I do believe that we need to continue to push with Ukraine. And they need to be able to maintain their lines and push back on Russia and ultimately get to the negotiating table from a position of strength. On Israel-Gaza, horrible to watch that play out. And now I'm really concerned about another front opening up with Hezbollah from Lebanon shooting into northern Israel. We need a negotiated ceasefire deal. Those hostages need to come home. If the United States had hostages in a foreign country or a foreign territory, we would be doing everything we could to get them back. But it also means, as someone who served in places like Ramadi and Anbar province in Iraq, that you can't, you know, the way you prosecute a military campaign matters for your long-term security. Are you turning more people against you than you're winning over?
There are other races that you may want to know about. We'll talk about that in just a moment. And no doubt there is more you would like to hear from the candidates who are running for the U.S. Senate. We'll have a note about that coming up. We'll be right back. Up for grabs. We know Michigan's a battleground state for this upcoming election. We expect to have a major say on who occupies the White House come January. Brian Sterling joins us now and is in studio with a look at just a few of the other races that are also up for grabs.
Yeah,
Brian?
Just a few. Thank you, Rick. According to The Hill, recent polling shows that Vice President Harris leads former President Trump by just under 4 points. But here in Michigan, it's a slightly different picture. Here are the results from a recent Epic MRA poll given to Michigan voters. It shows Trump has a 1-point lead over Harris in the state, but because of the margin of error, the two are in a statistical dead heat. Now for a quick look at the other races up for grabs in Michigan, shaping up the U.S. Congress in District 3. We have Congresswoman Hillary Scholten being challenged by Republican Paul Hudson. Scholten won this seat back in 2022, becoming the first Democrat to control that seat since the mid-1970s. In District 4, Republican Congressman Bill Huizenga will go up against Democratic challenger Jessica Swartz. Huizenga won the district with 54% of the votes in 22. District 7 features Democrat Curtis Hertel taking on Republican Tom Barrett. This is a seat that Representative Alyssa Slotkin currently holds. She beat Barrett in 2022 by 5.5 points. In District 8, Democrat Dan Kildee is retiring. Kristen McDonald is the Democrat running for that seat. Paul Jung is the Republican. Rick will be back in just over a minute as we get ready to sit center stage for the first presidential debate between former President Trump and Vice President Harris.
In this program, we were able to look at some of the issues that voters will be thinking about as they head to their polling place or casting their absentee ballot starting in just a few weeks. But there are many more questions and more details on the issues we would like to ask. Fortunately, we have that opportunity coming up early next month. Both Congresswoman Slotkin and former Congressman Rogers have agreed to a live one-hour debate that will be carried by our media partners around the state, including here in Grand Rapids and Lansing, as well as Flint, Saginaw, Cadillac, Traverse City, Marquette, and Alpena. In that one-hour debate, we'll take a deep dive into what both of these candidates see as priorities moving forward, and also look further into the issues that you've identified as concerns as you prepare to pick a new administration and a new United States Senator. We hope you'll join us on Tuesday, October 8th at 7 p.m. Up for grabs, the United States Senate debate. Thank you for watching, and remember, no reason absentee ballots will start going out in just weeks. Early in-person voting will start 9 days before the traditional election, and the last day to cast a vote is November 5th. We hope you'll participate in this important part of selecting our next leaders. Good night. Our debate coverage starts next.